The city of Jerusalem was still wrapped in the blue-gray silence of early morning when three women gathered their spices and walked toward a garden tomb. It was the first day of the week, what we would call Sunday, and the air carried the cool, almost sweet smell of dew settling on stone and grass. The streets were empty. Most of Jerusalem was still sleeping, still digesting the Passover, still unaware that the world had already changed in the night. These women, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome, had not slept much. They had spent the Sabbath in the agony of waiting, of keeping the law even when every hour of stillness felt unbearable. Now, finally, they could move. Now, finally, they could do the one small thing that grief allows. They could tend to the body of the man they had loved. He had been crucified 3 days before. They had watched it. They had stood near enough to hear his breathing slow, to see his head fall. And now they were walking through the pre-dawn chill of a Jerusalem garden with jars of spices tucked in their arms, tears dried on their faces, grief so deep it had passed through sorrow into something quieter and more permanent. They were not walking toward a miracle. They did not expect one. They were walking toward a sealed stone, a wrapped body, and a goodbye they had not yet been allowed to finish. The only practical question on their lips was a quiet, almost helpless one. Who would roll the stone away? That stone, that massive, round-cut slab of limestone that had been rolled across the entrance to the tomb, sealed by Roman guards, authorized by Pilate himself, locked against the world. It was not just a rock. It was a verdict. It was every authority of earth declaring that the story of Jesus of Nazareth was finished, complete, done. The religious leaders had demanded it. The governor had permitted it. The soldiers had enforced it. And so there it sat, heavy, cold, immovable, and these three women were walking toward it with nothing but broken hearts and burial spices. They had every reason to believe that the stone would still be there. Every earthly reason. And that is the question the whole story rests on. Not just theirs, but ours. When everything has been sealed shut, when every authority has declared that hope is over, is it really over? What they found when they arrived at the garden stopped them cold. The stone had been moved. Not slightly. Not cracked open. It had been rolled back completely, standing at the side of the tomb entrance like something discarded, irrelevant, almost embarrassed to still be there. Peter and John ran. John outran Peter and arrived first, stopping at the entrance and peering in. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, the burial cloth that had been wrapped around the body of Jesus. But he didn't go in. There is something in that detail, some human hesitation at the threshold, some breath held at the edge of the incomprehensible. Then Peter arrived, and Peter, being Peter, went straight in. He saw the linen cloths. He saw the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head, lying not with the other linens, but separately, folded up, set aside in its own place. John followed him in and saw and believed, though the scripture adds, quietly and with honesty, that they still did not understand from the scripture that Jesus must rise from the dead. They went home. They walked away, still confused, still uncertain, still standing at the border of something they didn't yet have the language for. Mary Magdalene came back to the garden alone. And this is the moment the whole story hinges on. She stood outside the tomb, weeping. Not neat, dignified weeping, but the kind that bends a person forward, the kind that comes from somewhere deeper than the lungs. She stooped to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head, one at the feet, like sentinels posted on either side of an absence. They asked her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" And she told them, "Someone has taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him." She turned around. There was a man standing there. Through her tears, she didn't recognize him. She assumed he was the gardener. She said to him, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Then the man said one word. He said her name, Mary. That was all. Her name, spoken the way only one voice had ever spoken it, with that particular weight, that particular knowing, that particular love. And something in her cracked open. She turned, and she cried out, "Rabboni, teacher." The word barely made it out of her before she reached for him, clung to him, the way a person grabs hold of something they were certain was gone forever. He was standing in a garden in the early morning light, and he was alive. He told her not to cling to him. Not yet. There was work still to be done, an ascension still to come, disciples still to find. And then he sent her. He sent a woman. In a culture where a woman's testimony wasn't considered legally valid in court, he sent Mary Magdalene to be the first to carry the most important news in the history of the world. "Go to my brothers," he told her, "and tell them I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." She went. She ran. She found them and said the words that would echo across every subsequent century of human life. "I have seen the Lord." The resurrection is not a comfortable story. It doesn't resolve neatly. It leaves people weeping in gardens, staring at folded grave clothes, running through empty streets with news no one is quite ready to believe. It is disorienting and overwhelming and almost too large to look at directly, like the sun. But that is part of what makes it true in the deepest sense. It doesn't feel managed or tidy. It feels like something that actually happened to real people who were not prepared for it. What this morning reveals is not simply that death was defeated in some abstract theological sense. It reveals that God shows up specifically. He says your name. He finds the person weeping outside the tomb who has no status, no credentials, no official standing. And he makes her the first witness. The resurrection doesn't begin with a proclamation from a palace or a declaration from a temple. It begins in a garden, with a woman's tears and a single word spoken in the early light. And perhaps that is the most extraordinary thing of all, that the morning which rewrote history began so quietly, so personally, so small. The stone was not rolled away so Jesus could get out. It was rolled away so we could look in and believe.